Hi, Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Ethar and I'm part of the welcoming team here at Tazkiya Tuesday. We're so happy to have you join us tonight. This month's theme is البداية والنهاية, or from this life to the hereafter. And for today's halaqah, we'll be focusing on the eternal abode, led by our wonderful Imam, Farhan Siddiqi. We're so excited to learn, reflect, and grow together. May Allah make this gathering full of benefit and barakah. Ameen.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. So I was given the task of speaking about paradise and hellfire. Paradise, I think, is an easier topic. Hellfire tends to be a little bit more challenging, a little bit scarier. But what would you guys like to start with? The hellfire? Okay. All right. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting everyone to be like, okay, let's start with the hellfire, with paradise. I'm sorry. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, يوم نقول جهنم هل امتلأتم وتقول هل من مزيد. Now on that day we shall say to the hellfire, are you full? And we will say, are there any more? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He also says, كلما ألقي فيها فوج سألهم خزنتها لم يأتكم نذير. That every time we throw in a nation, or every time we throw in a group, that part of the hellfire asks that, were you guys not warned? Did not someone come to you that you keep coming in group after group? And in these verses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gives us a very clear image of the hellfire, how it has this insatiable appetite, and how it keeps seeking and it keeps asking for more. And this is a very close similitude on how we deal and how we speak about and how we talk about just fire in general, right? Fire is something that's very consumptive, right? Like it consumes. It's something that destroys, and it's almost endless, right? You can just keep putting stuff in a fire, and the fire will keep consuming it, and the fire will keep growing. And it is this metaphor that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses when He speaks about, when He talks about the hellfire. And even on the Day of Judgment, the hellfire will be brought forward. With how many chains? Do you guys know? There's 70,000 chains that are linked to this hellfire. And on each of these chains, there is 70,000 angels. Each of them pulling. And it's almost like they're fighting the hellfire, because the hellfire is just being so, like, voracious, right? It's being so violent. And again, very much, that image of fire is very clear to us. Like when we see fire, it's something that we're always looking and trying to contain, and it's the same thing with the hellfire. Something that these angels are making an effort to contain. Like why do you need so many chains? Like why do you need so many angels? And part of that is to create that image, to say it has like this beast-like quality. It's just wild. And this fire is then being brought toward the people so that they can see this hellfire. They can see this beast-like creature that is just waiting to consume its inhabitants. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from that. What is the purpose of the hellfire? To punish. And who is it to punish? I'm sorry? All right, it punishes humanity. And very specifically, if we put people into groups, who are the groups that are to be punished by the hellfire? All right, the disbelievers, for sure. So those people who didn't accept Islam in whatever iteration it was throughout humanity's history. What else? Right, the hypocrites. And these hypocrites, we're not talking about, it's like, oh, he says something, he does something else, right? We're talking about people who actually show Islam, but they do not believe in Islam. What other group of people? Right, even Muslims. So the Muslims are not saved from the hellfire. What is the difference between the Muslims and maybe some of these other groups? Right, it's not eternal. And this is something that's really important to keep in mind. And someone might say, okay, well, these people, there might be people who were good in this world. Yes. There might be people who are kind in this world. There might be people who gave up a lot of their life serving humanity. Why is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is punishing them for eternity? And there might be a Muslim who was very foul, very oppressive, their entire lives. Yes, go ahead. Okay. All right, so part of it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's promise that only the people who believe will be taken out of the hellfire, no doubt. But my question is, if we understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be eternally forgiving, and we understand Him to be just, and we understand Him to be this one who has this infinite mercy and is infinitely forgiving, when we talk about our lifespans compared to the next world is there a comparison? Right, it's like a drop in the ocean, not even, right? You're talking about maybe 60, 70 years and versus eternity. What is it that they violated? Why is shirk so problematic? Why is disbelief so problematic that it deserves an eternity of punishment? Yes? Jazakallah khair. Right, so there's a mithaq. There's an agreement that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made with all of us, with all of humanity. And this was pre-creation. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He takes from dhurriyyat Adam. He takes from all of the sons and all the daughters of Adam alayhi salam, and He asks every single one of us, Alastu bi rabbikum? Right, am I not your Lord? And every single one of us, from all of those who existed, all of those who exist, and all of those who will exist, we all answered what? Bala, absolutely. None of us said like, hey, listen Allah, why are you making me? Or, Ya Allah, don't send me into this earth. No one protested at that time. No one said like, no, I don't want to, or I don't know if I can do that. It was something that was so simple, and something that was so basic, and something that was so clear that they didn't feel that there was anything that could happen that would ever sway them from that. And that is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, well, you promised me one thing, and this is what you violated. What else do we know about hellfire? So it's ravenous, right? It's almost beast-like. It always wants to consume. What else do we know about hellfire? There's levels to the hellfire, right? There's levels to this one. And then, in each of those levels, what makes them different? Because paradise also mirrors that, and paradise also has what? Levels. So what would make the bottom levels of paradise different than the top, or what would make the higher levels of hellfire different from those that are lower? Okay, so the lower you go through hellfire, the worse it gets. Yes? So in the highest levels, the Prophet ﷺ, who did he describe? He described Abu Talib. And he had asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive his uncle. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said to him, He's like, you can't ask forgiveness for someone who doesn't believe. But I will, what? I will lessen his punishment. And what was his punishment? That he will be given iron sandals that will cause his brains to boil. Wa'iyadu billah, may Allah protect us. And this is considered from the lightest levels. What are some other punishments in the hellfire? And some of them are very graphic. You guys familiar? Or did everybody avoid reading up on the hellfire? We're real quick to read about paradise, right? All the things that we want and all the things that we seek. Yes? La ilaha illallah. Right? So they'll be given sharab min hamim. It'll be pus, blood, filth, and this will be the only thing that there is to drink and to consume. And it'll be boiling. At what stage of thirst would a person have to reach to even consider drinking something like that. Like, these are the things I want us to think about. That the only liquid I see in front of me is basically something that is filthy and disgusting. Something I probably normally wouldn't even touch, let alone drink. That I've gotten, my thirst is at a point where I'm even considering it and I'm seeking it. And even when they do drink it, what happens? It only increases their thirst, right? It only makes it worse. It only exacerbates it. What else is in hellfire? Yes? Zaqum. So what is zaqum? It's a tree. So imagine you have a tree, like, subhanAllah, you have plants can grow anywhere, right? Even in the hellfire. And what is unique about this tree? What do its fruits look like? It's like a thorny fruit. Meaning that when I go to grab it, what's going to happen? It's going to be painful. If I go to eat it, it's going to be painful. If I go to swallow it, it's going to be painful. Again, just think of the level of thirst and the level of hunger that an individual would have to be facing and having to deal with to even consider eating or drinking things that he normally wouldn't even touch. What else do we know about hellfire? What are some of the punishments, if you guys are aware? You guys know the akil riba? Yes, go ahead. La ilaha illallah. Yeah, so the angels will take hooks and they'll insert them into their mouth and pull, and what is going to happen is their cheeks rip. And by the time one cheek rips, they place the hook on the other side and come back, and the other side is already healed again. And why was that happening? What was this person doing? He was backbiting. What other punishments? Yes. Right, so there's, some of these are for the zunat, and for those people who were constantly engaged in zina, that they would be crushed under rocks. And why that parallel? So the example that was given about the one who does riba, right, like his mouth being cut, what is that, do you think that's in relation to the crime? Right, because he used his mouth to speak. Like, what does the crushing have to do with zina? In zina, what part of your body takes pleasure? All of it. And in crushing, I'm just like, okay, it's not matcha, right? Okay, I had a choice between matcha and water. So when you enjoy with your entire body, you're going to be punished with your entire body. Another thing that is unique about the hellfire, and this is something Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He describes, is that after the skin is burned off, what happens? It comes back. Why? So you can burn again. Where are the nerve endings? They're in the skin. Like, just to experience the pain again. Because once the nerve endings are gone, the pain goes away. And once those nerve endings are brought back, the pain then returns. Now, what are some other punishments? I'm sorry? The one who's greedy. What happens to him? So there are two, right? The one, the akil riba, right? The one who used to consume riba. Do you guys know the punishment of this person? He's basically forced to swim. And when he reaches a certain point and he asks for help, what happens? Right? He's thrown rocks into his mouth to consume, only to make the swimming what? Harder, right? Because he's sinking as more and more weight is increased. So the Prophet ﷺ, he describes for us these different scenarios. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us the nature of the pain and the suffering and the harshness of the hellfire. Do you guys think the amount of description that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spends around paradise is equal to the amount of description he spends in the hellfire? No. Okay. Why do you think that is? Right, so his mercy is greater than his wrath, for sure. What else? Because when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he talks about paradise, right? Like, and we'll get to a lot of the details, right? He talks about wearing bangles, he talks about wearing silk clothing, he talks about having servants, homes, right? He talks about all of these things. But he doesn't talk about a lot of the details of the people of the hellfire, or in as much detail. And one of the reasons you guys mention is because his mercy precedes his wrath. There's no doubt about that. What is another reason? When it comes to us, right? That's concerning Allah. Like, what about me as the observer, or me as the reader, or me as the Muslim? What lesson can I take away from that? All right, not to despair. Good. So you mentioned a very important point. There are different ways to motivate people. Would you guys agree? Hellfire is a motivation for what emotion? Fear. And paradise is a motivation for what emotion? Hope, right? So here, if we compare these two, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is leaning toward what? He's leaning toward hope. Why is that? Why lean toward hope? Why not just make them equal? Or why not lean toward fear? Yes? All right, fear can be very paralyzing, for sure. What else? Yes? Hope is more motivating. And even in our own lives, there are different ways to lead, right? Whether you're a community leader, or whether you're a boss, whether you're a father, whatever the case might be. In all those situations, can I scare a subordinate? Can I scare a community member? Can I scare my child? Right, I can. Will that motivate them to get the result that maybe I'm looking for in the moment? Somebody said no. Yeah, it does, right? Maybe not every time, but it definitely does. How sustainable is that? Right, so a lot of you are shaking your heads like it's not sustainable. I would say at the best, those behaviors will continue if there's an oversight of fear until what point? Until either you're not afraid anymore, or what is another possibility? Right, you get freedom, you're removed from the situation. Right, so in a situation, if a father is leading with fear and the father dies, what is now the motivation for that child? And it's amazing how fear doesn't stick around as long as hope does. That fear is not as intrusive as love is. And when you look at our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and how He motivates us, like, are there times where fear is necessary? 100%. Like, how many of us have like really been in like a rut? You know what I mean? Like, we're just not clinically depressed, but like depressed. Like, we really feel down. We don't want to talk to like everybody. Everybody raise their hands. It's like we've all been down. Like, we've all been depressed. Like, we've all felt bad. An easy way to get out of that sometimes is just to instill that sense of fear, just to wake somebody up, right? Just to get that jolt. Can love work? Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Right? There's no doubt about it. But I think there's a reason Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala varies these tools. Right? Sometimes He motivates with fear, and sometimes He motivates with love. And the reason that He Azza wa Jal does that, and Allah knows best, is because the states of our heart are always going to vary. There are times where we need that fear to push us, and there are times where we need that love to push us. And we shouldn't overuse either. How many of you are familiar with the statement that Iman it has two wings? What are those two wings? Between fear and hope. This is a very famous saying from Ibn al-Qayyim. Imam al-Ghazali, he's earlier than him significantly, but he says that it should be on those two wings of fear and hope. But you should always lean, which way? Toward hope. Just a little bit. Because hope, like we said, is more consistent, it's more motivating, and when we look at things in that context, it really helps us understand why is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed so much more emphasis, so much more description, so much more in terms of just like vivid explanation on paradise. And even if you look at fear, is something scary the more I describe it or the more vague I leave it? What you got? Think about that, right? If it's just a little bit vague, right? If you don't know, if you see, how many of you are familiar with It, right? The clown horror movie. One of the reasons he was so scary is because could you see his entirety in the sewer? Right? You couldn't see everything. In most horror movies, where do they take place? Do they take place during the day, like in a well-lit place? Huh? Or where do they take place? It's like, no, Sheikh, horror movies are haram. What are you asking us? Right now, they happen in the dark. And part of the reason is because having that element of unknown, it adds to that fear. Right? It creates that element that's there so that it actually causes an individual to fear more. But the more descriptive I am for hope, the more it actually pushes me and drives me. So it's because it's like, hey man, you know, there's going to be food at the event. What's the next question? Well, is it free? That's always a good question, right? Is it free? What's another question that we usually have? What kind? Oh yeah? How many people are going to be there? Is there going to be enough food? Who's catering it? Right? Like we start getting like really, really specific. And the more the information aligns with what it is that I'm seeking, what happens, like eventually I end up what? I end up going to the event. And that's the same way with Jannah. The more descriptive Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is of it. And He Azza wa Jal, He knows us better than we know ourselves. He knows all of the things that we love. He knows all of the things that we seek. He knows all of the things that motivate us. And it's amazing in the Quran how He Azza wa Jal, He describes and He uses those things that He knows are going to push us and motivate us to seek paradise. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He says, وَسَارِعُوا إِلَى مَغْفِرَةٍ, right? He says, seek the maghfirah. Run after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. Run after His forgiveness. Why? Because you will have a place in a space that's called paradise. And this space and place of paradise is so wide and it's so vast that it's immeasurable. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says that there is one tree in paradise, just one, whose shade casts for 100 years. Meaning it doesn't matter how fast a vehicle you have, it's going to take you 100 years to cross it. Just one tree. How many of you are familiar with the last person who enters paradise? Yeah, you guys know the story? Would you like to hear it? Unless you guys want to hear more about the hellfire. No? Okay. Everybody's like, no, that's enough. So you have this individual. He's the last person taken out of the hellfire. And he's taken out of the hellfire, and he's now in between the hellfire and paradise. And he's facing the hellfire. And he could smell like the wretchedness, he could smell the ash. And he says, Ya Allah. He's like, please let me ask for one thing. And Allah says to him, He's like, okay, I will let you ask, but you have to promise you're not going to ask anything else after this. He said, Ya Allah, I promise you I won't. He's like, what do you ask for? He said, can you turn me away from the hellfire? Like, I don't want to look at it. Like the smell and just like the suffering and all the things that I see, like I don't want to keep looking at those things. Like I'm happy I'm out. Like I'm definitely happy I'm out. I just don't want to look at these things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, okay, granted. And after some time, he sees, he's looking at, now he's facing the gates of paradise. And he gets a little antsy, and he says, Ya Allah. He's like, can I ask for one thing? He said, you promised you wouldn't ask for anything else. He's like, I know, after this I won't ask for anything else. He's like, what? He's like, can you just move me closer to paradise so I can see inside? I just want to see. Just let me up to the gate. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to him, he's like, okay, you're not going to ask for anything else, right? He's like, no. He said, bi'izzatik. He says, by your honor, Ya Allah, I will not going to ask anything for again. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, granted. And he moves closer. Now he's at the gates. What does he see? What do you guys think? He's at the gates now. Right now he can see inside paradise. Right? Like, you see all these rivers, people having a good time, right? He sees these gardens. It's just amazing, right? He just sees this amazing place, people just really enjoying themselves. And eventually he gets an itch. What does he do? He asks Allah for what? Now he's going to ask for what? He's like, yo, just let me in, please. He's like, come on, I made it this far. Just let me in. And he's like, you promised you weren't going to ask for anything else? He's like, yeah, I know, Allah. Just please, I promise I won't ask for anything else after this. So Allah says, okay, fine, you can go in. And he walks in, and he looks at everything. He's like, okay, Allah, which part is mine? He said, you remember when you lived in the world? He was like, yeah. He's like, you know the entire world? He's like, yeah. He's like, you get 10 times that, 100 times that. And he's like, wait, just me? He's like, yeah, just you. He said, it's all yours. Take it. And this is who? The last person to enter paradise. That he's given 100 times of this world and everything that's in it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says about paradise itself, in the foods and the fruits, كُلُّ مَا رُزِقُ فِيهَا ثَمَرَةِ الرِّزْقَ. And they say, قَالُوا هَذَا الَّذِي رُزِقْنَا مِنْ قَبْلِ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَأُتُوا بِهِ مُتَشَابِهًا. He says that every time they go to sit down, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them rizq. Right? He gives them sustenance. And they say to Allah, yeah, Allah, I recognize this. This is an apple, these are grapes, right? This is chicken. I know all this stuff. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he responds to them. He says, yeah, you're given that which is a likeness of what you had perceived in this world. The difference is going to be what? It's going to be in its intensity. It's going to be in its flavor. Right? It's not just going to be like a regular apple. It's going to be an amazing apple. It's not going to be just chicken. It's going to be very juicy chicken, right? Very tasty. The intensity is not something like you've ever experienced. Why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring things that we recognize? Why would Allah tell us in this world? There's a couple of reasons. I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say. Yes. No, go ahead. No, I'll get to you. Okay, familiarity. That's really, really important. MashaAllah. Excellent. Yes. You're going to say the same thing? Familiarity is really important. Why? Right, so if the only thing I'm familiar with and the only thing I know are the things that I've seen in this world, how many of you have ever been to a restaurant and they bring you a dish you just don't recognize at all? Right, you're looking at it. So what is the first thing you start doing? You start poking at it, right? You'll poke at it, you'll take a fork, you'll be like, what is this? You're gonna smell it, right? You're gonna be like, what is this? What's in here? So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is bringing that familiarity, because remember, Jannah is a place of what? It's a place of peace, it's a place of security, it's a place of safety. And if I'm given those things that I recognize, what happens to my heart? I feel calm. I feel like I'm being catered to. I feel I'm being served. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings those things that are familiar, out of a mercy toward us. But the way, like, the shape and everything is going to look the same. But the only reason for that is because these are the things that we're familiar with and these are the things that we want. And then after this and beyond this, this is even a description of the lower levels of heaven. The Prophet ﷺ, he describes the highest levels of heaven. He said, listen, in those spaces and places are things that the eyes have never seen, the ears have never heard, and the body has never experienced. It's a completely different paradigm, a completely different realm. It's not even something that's describable. And it's amazing how the things that is so descriptive and so vivid, this is a description of those lower levels. Why? Because this is like, that's the farthest we as humans can perceive, right? So the farthest we can perceive is what? The lowest? The lowest level of heaven. Think about that, right? The most we can perceive and the most that our like brains can handle is that lowest level of heaven. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't even bother describing the highest levels. Because he's like, no, it's beyond your comprehension. It's beyond what you can even imagine. And the reason, again, to create that hope is like, man, if the lowest level is that amazing, how much more amazing are the levels that are beyond that and above that? Like, what experiences are there that I wouldn't see or that I wouldn't have in those lower heavens? Like, these are the things that we should be striving for. These are the things that should be pushing us. Right? This should be the desire in our heart. Like, to get to those spaces and places. Why? It's like because we want to go into spaces and places that are wildly beyond our imaginations. That are places that are incomprehensible. Spaces that we cannot understand. And even in those spaces and in those places, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He still allows us to meet. Right? He still allows us to intermingle. And every week, there's a market. And what is the market for? Market is usually to socialize. Like, some of us go to the mall to shop. Some of us go to window shop. Some of us go to hang out with our friends. Some of us go just to walk. Some of us just to go to enjoy the weather, right? And just to be out. And the souq in the market is not very different in Jannah, in that regard. When home from the market, they'll find that their wife is more beautiful than they left her, and she'll find he's more handsome than when he left her. And these are just of the small blessings that we will find and we'll see in paradise, inshallah. And above all of this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He describes us and tells us, رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنْهُمْ وَرَضُوا عَنْهُ, that in this space and in this place, the believers are happy with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So pleased, so happy. And I'm sure, and again, this is just to us like a significantly smaller scale. Have any of us experienced those moments and those points where we're like, yo, everything is so good, right? Like, I'm not all the time, but just like, maybe those individual moments where it's like everything just kind of like all the pieces just kind of set together. The day just ends like in this amazing way. For those of you that maybe like enjoy hiking, it's like, it's really difficult, and when you get to the summit, all of a sudden seeing the sunset in the distance, it's just, what happens to that like 3, 4, 5 hour hike? It's gone, forget it. Because in that moment, everything just kind of falls into place. Imagine feeling like that all the time. Where everything is amazing. Where everything is wonderful. Everything is like being on that summit every single day. That's Jannah. And sometimes we think of Jannah as just like a very abstract kind of place, which is understandable, right? No, unfortunately, none of us have ever visited. So we don't know, right? Like, we don't know the reality of these things. But there are certain things that we do experience in this world that give us a glimpse, right? That give us an idea, just to motivate us to get there and to be there. There's a hadith of this man where he lived this entire life in ease. But he took advantage of others, and he hurt them. but he lived very, very luxuriously his entire life. And he'll be dipped into the hellfire. Just dipped, just touched. And it'll be asked of him, did you experience any ease in this world? And he will say, Wallahi. He'll say, by Allah, I swear to God, I haven't experienced any ease. And the opposite also holds true. That there will be an individual who his life was nothing but difficulty and hardship and pain. And he will be dipped into paradise. And it will be asked of him, did you experience any difficulty or any pain in this world? He'll say, Wallahi, I didn't. And that should give us an idea of how to weigh these times, because it becomes really difficult sometimes because we get caught in the moment. Like we get caught in that experience, or we get caught in that situation. And it becomes so central to our lives that we forget the centrality of our lives should be too, and how we deal and view with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This life is like really short. And I'm sure if I asked all of you, like, do you know someone that passed away this year? I'm sure everybody will raise their hands. Like, we see death all the time, whether it be directly, like someone that we know, or somebody we grew up with, or somebody that was a close family member, or indirectly, whether it be on the news, right, or we hear about someone in the community, or we attend a janazah. Like sometimes we'll just show up at the masjid, we didn't even know there's a janazah, right, and we're praying. Like death is a reality that we see and experience every single day. And if we know that that is a reality, how many of those experiences do we allow to touch us? That remind us and tell us, like, listen, my time is close. It's scary, right? There's no doubt about it. And I don't want it to get to a point like one of you had mentioned that fear should never be crippling. In Islam, if there is a fearful moment, if there's a moment of grief, if there's a moment of pain, if there's any trauma, these should all be pivoting moments in our life. I had a young man tell me one time, he's like, yeah, it's just like, I've gone through a lot of trauma. And I was like, I'm sorry to hear that. But the reality is that either of you received trauma or you've been spoiled. Right? There's no third way. And if I'm one that experienced trauma, if all I do is whine and complain about it, then I'm going to be from those people who are disliked. And if I grew up with a silver spoon, many times it's the same result. Just whine and complain about what I don't have. These are all pivoting moments for us. And do I want to pivot toward paradise, or do I want to allow myself into the hellfire? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very clear in what these spaces and these places are. He's very clear in who's going to enter them. The beauty of our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very defined. Like, if you want to talk about a being that is clear in their boundaries, there's no clearer being than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He tells us exactly what he wants from you. He's like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is what I want from you. These 5 pillars, if you do these 5 pillars, I love you. Simple. And he means it too, right? That's the beauty of our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sometimes we can tell someone to do something and we really don't mean it. But with Allah, there are no games. There's no pettiness. There's no hidden agenda. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells me to do these things. If you do these things, you get to my paradise. You stay away from these things, you get to my paradise. You perform these acts, you take care of these people, you're kind, right? You're generous, you're courageous, do these things. That's it. That's all you have to be. And I promise you a space in paradise. You fall short in any of these things, well, there's a chance you'll be punished. Be wary of that. And even then, I'm willing to overlook. SubhanAllah. So what steps are we taking? Have we kind of visualized that version, who we want to be, me in paradise? Right, because that person exists. Right, there's the one who's in paradise and there's the one that's in hellfire. And if we're being honest with ourselves, we know what both of them look like. We know what that righteous one looks like, and we know what that evil one looks like. And if I did a judgment of myself today, right? If I evaluated myself today, right, who am I closer to? Am I closer to that evil version? Am I closer to that righteous one? And I think we can all do that. And I think it's easy. And I think it's always good to have not just Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, obviously in our minds and hearts, that's essentially what taqwa is. While also keeping in mind, okay, that version of me that's in paradise, like would he do these things? That version of me that's in paradise, would he say it like that? That version of me that's in paradise, is this how he would address and deal with others? Like, is that going to help me where I want to be and where I need to be? Or is it going to help me get to the place where I don't want to be? And even the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He motivates us, right? Like He motivates us in different ways and places. There's a farmer who came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he said, Ya Rasulullah, are there going to be farms in Jannah? And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he smiled. He was like, yeah, there'll be farms. He's like, it's going to be a little bit different though. And the farmer was like, how's that? He said, listen, you're going to plant your seeds, you're going to plow your land, and immediately after you finish plowing, there's going to be all of the plants that you wanted to grow or they've already grown behind you. He's like, man, that's amazing. Anything and everything we seek and we want, whatever fulfillment we weren't able to get in this world, whatever fulfillment we did receive and we wanted that to multiply and be more, all of that is in paradise. Like I said, beyond our comprehension, beyond our ability to grasp. That is Jannah. And the pathway toward it is very clear. It's not easy, right? No, nobody said that it's an easy path. It's a straightforward path, but it's not an easy one. To the point where the Prophet ﷺ, he was shown paradise, and he's like, man, who wouldn't want to go here? It's like, this place is amazing. And then Jibreel alayhi salam, he was like, yeah, but this is the path to get there. And he was like, oh man. He's like, that's the path? I don't know if anyone's going to make it. And then he was shown the hellfire, and he was like, nobody's trying to go there. And he was shown the path. He was like, man, I fear everybody would take that path. It's so easy. And how many of us know this, right? It's so easy to lie. It's so easy to steal. It's so easy to commit zina. It's so easy to be in bad situations. It's so easy to do all those things that we shouldn't be doing. But it is hard to be courageous, right? It is hard to be kind, especially when it's easy just to give in to our emotions. It's so much easier for me to be angry. It's so much easier for me to act out of grief. It's so much easier for me to wallow in my own pity, right? And to throw that pity party for myself. Like, it's so much easier. What's hard is reaching out and calling my friend and saying like, hey, listen, I'm not doing well, I need help. Like, what do you need? I don't know, dude, just come over. Right, that's hard. That's not easy. But that's paradise. That's the only way to get it. To push ourselves, to challenge ourselves, because that's where growth is. And that's what growth is. Because that is paradise. And if it's something that we seek and something that we want, that is how we should be seeking it, and that is how we should be going after it. Are we good on time? Who's the timekeeper? Yeah. How much more time I got? I'm sorry? 10, 15 minutes? Should we open up for Q&A, or we can open Q&A? Okay. Let me close it out, inshallah, and then we'll open up for Q&A. So these pathways are things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made very clear for us. And if I want to do something and if I want to be something, a lot of times we get caught up in the weeds. Like, we'll get caught up in things that don't concern us. And it's amazing how he sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, min husna islam al-mar. He says, from the goodness of a person's Islam, to leave off those things that don't concern him. How many of us get involved in things that don't concern us? How many of us speak about things that we shouldn't be speaking about? How many of us try to help people in ways when we do not have the skill set or the ability to help them? How many of us are willing to get in situations where we're giving bad advice to others? Like, this is not a person who has a grasp of Islam. This is just a person who's selfish and someone who wants to feed their ego. What takes courage is saying, I don't know. What takes courage is like, hey, listen, I think you should go see so-and-so. That's what takes courage. It doesn't take courage just to come up with the solution. It doesn't take courage to just go Google something. It doesn't take courage to just go put something in like ChatGPT and come up with an answer. That's not courage. And someone might be like, okay, well, aren't these large language models, they're really good and they give good input. I have yet to have ChatGPT disagree with me. Very telling of how amazing I am. No, I'm just kidding. But like, because you can literally tell it what you want. He's like, no, ChatGPT, you're wrong. I don't think that's the case. Or, I don't think that's true. Oh, you're right. Like, wait, what? that's all it took? It don't take much to convince you. Not to say these things are not, they're not tools that we cannot utilize, but they're not solutions. I want to be very clear in that. The solution, always and forever, for any type of spiritual ailment, is always going to be the Quran and the Sunnah. There's no doubt about that. No doubt. And are there other methods and techniques and like knowledges that I can take advantage of for other issues and problems that I have in my life? Absolutely, 100%. But that can only happen when I'm honest with myself and when I'm honest with others. And that's what this deen is all about. It's all about truth. It's all about honesty. It's all about transparency. And if we look at the Prophet ﷺ, there's so many characteristics he had, but the two that we always come back to was Sadiq al-Amin, that he was honest and he was trustworthy. He was honest, he was open, he was transparent. That's how we need to be with ourselves. That's how we need to be with others. And that's truly how we need to be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May He Azza wa Jal give us tawfiq, and may He Azza wa Jal protect us from His hellfire and enter us into His paradise. Ameen. Tafadhal. Sure.
All right, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you so much, Imam. Just a quick reminder, if you guys want to get involved, invest in YAP, we have some QR codes up here, and we're going to be jumping into Q&A, so if you guys want to ask questions, you can scan that QR code as well. Also, we're going to have a Quran night coming up, inshallah, on November 6th. We're going to have some qaris coming out from Texas and some local qaris as well, so be sure to stay tuned for that on the Instagram. All right, some discussion guidelines, just purify your intentions, or actually we're just going to do Q&A, so let's just ignore that.
Yeah, no breakout groups?
No, we're just going to do
okay.
Q&A tonight.
Okay.
Anyways.
That's fine.
All right, thank you.
I'm not cool enough for discussion groups, I get it.
I can
So
start.
the question is both in person and online? Or just online?
We'll do in person.
Okay. Why don't we start with whoever would like to ask, and then we could move to online, inshallah.
So you mentioned something about like Iman having two wings, fear and hope. So I guess my question is like, how do you have a good balance between those two, especially if you feel like your deen or your Imam is more operated on like a base of fear? So what would you say for that?
So it's usually pretty easy for an individual to tell where they're operating from. Fear will always paralyze us. It'll always stop us from, many times fulfilling and doing whatever duty it is that we're trying to fulfill. And if I'm having difficulty gauging, right, and this is for many of us, this can be the case, it's important for me to have a group in a circle of friends to kind of give me feedback and input on how it is that I'm practicing and how it is that I'm engaging. I think that can be very hard. I think that can be very difficult. But if you guys do have I'm sure many of you have like that WhatsApp chat of like, your core friends, or, I use Telegram, but like everybody has that chat group where they use like those core friends. Have any of you had the courage to ever ask and be like, hey, listen guys, I'm kind of looking for some advice. What are some qualities or characteristics I should change about myself? Right? It's not an easy question, right? And I think many times we're difficult to be vulnerable at that level. But I think we know in our heart of hearts where we kind of are on that spectrum of like fear and hope. And it's like, okay, well, how do I make those adjustments? Go talk to an imam. Like, just like you go to a doctor for different things, like you need to go to an imam or sheikh or like, whoever your spiritual mentor is to give you insight and to give you a guide and be like, okay, hey, listen, I need to start shifting my iman more toward hope, or I need to shift it back more toward fear because I see myself doing a lot of sins and becoming comfortable in that. Right? And why am I operating like that? Well, because I believe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will overlook and he'll forgive me. Well, if that's the case, then why are sins becoming easier and easier for you to do? Right? Like, and if I'm operating from a place of fear, it's like, okay, well, how do you know that? Well, I was afraid to go pray over here, or I was afraid to do this, or I didn't do that because I didn't think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would accept. And it's like, okay, no, we need to shift the paradigm a little bit. Number one, I'm not in a position where I can tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala what he can accept and what he can't accept. Right? So I think a lot of those require individual kind of mentorship, spiritual mentorship specifically, to help a person get out of whatever rut it is or wherever it is they're leaning too much toward.
Thank you.
All right, we have another question. Does someone have to be Muslim to enter paradise? What if someone is genuinely a good person but just isn't Muslim? Would they still go to the hellfire?
So at the end of the day, the only thing I can speak about for surety is that whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he talks about those people who will enter paradise, they are Muslim. There's no doubt about that. Now, can I say which individuals go into paradise and which individuals go into hellfire? I can't say that. The only people I can speak about for surety are those that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about in the Quran and those who the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam talks about. So when I talk about Fir'aun, where's Fir'aun? In the hellfire, right? If I talk about Haman, if I talk about Qarun, right? Like I talk about these individuals, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has named them specifically that these people are in the hellfire. If we talk about Ashra al-Mubashirin, right? The 10 people who are guaranteed and promised paradise. Those people, somebody asked me, I'd be like, they're in paradise. Someone asked me about the Prophet ﷺ, in paradise. If someone asked me about like an individual who died yesterday, I have no idea. Right? Just like I can't guarantee paradise for myself, I cannot guarantee hellfire for another on a specific case, right? So we're talking case by case. Now, in a general sense, absolutely. Who goes to paradise? Muslims. No doubt about that. I don't doubt that. But is it possible a person believed in their heart? Maybe, right? That's between them and Allah. Is it possible a person took their shahada before they died? Yes, that's between them and Allah. I'm not here to pass those judgments. The only thing that we can do is if a person is public with their Islam, at the time of burial, I treat them as what? As a Muslim. And if a person is not public with their Islam, can I treat them as a Muslim? No. But my dealing, does that have an effect on their akhirah? It doesn't. Right? It doesn't matter how I deal with them. Like that person, if they're destined for hellfire or they're destined for paradise, like I said, that's between them and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
All right, inshallah. So the third question, is the last person to enter paradise also the last person to leave hellfire, or are there still people being punished in the hellfire when they leave?
So the majority of scholars say that that hellfire and the people, inhabitants of it, are there eternally. The only Sunni scholars that I know that differed from this are Ibn al-Qayyim and Ibn Taymiyyah. Ibn al-Qayyim, he says that he says that the inhabitants of the hellfire at some point will be taken out and placed in the paradise. And hellfire will perish. Ibn Taymiyyah, he says that both the hellfire and its inhabitants will perish. But like I said, those are unique opinions. I don't know the majority of scholars to hold that view. I know them to hold the view that both the hellfire and its inhabitants are eternal.
All right, next question. How can we stop making our ibadah transactional and more so for the sake and love for Allah?
That requires a lot of spiritual exercise. and a lot of personal shift in my thought to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because the reality is like, okay, if I'm praying, like, what am I deserving of? Or if I'm fasting, what am I deserving of? And the reality is there's going to come a point where I don't receive whatever it is that I'm seeking. So I think transactional in the sense that, okay, I'm doing this because I want paradise, and that's fine, right? I think that's not, I won't say that's an unhealthy viewpoint, right? There's a reason Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala motivates us with that. But like I said, there are different tools in the toolbox. Sometimes I need fear to motivate me. Sometimes I need hope to motivate me. And sometimes I need love to motivate me, right? Like there are going to be different tools that I have to take advantage of. And if I'm at a state and I'm at a point where, okay, hey, I need to be a little bit transactional right now to get me through this, I don't think that's wrong. It's like, okay, well, how do I start building myself up where I'm truly doing this because I want to seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's pleasure?
All right, next question.
There's one right here.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. To be too hopeful? Yes. When an individual is too hopeful, then all of a sudden it becomes very easy for them to believe that Allah is overlooking a lot of the things that they're doing. And that can lead to actually hurting others and harming others. Yeah. No, go ahead.
Okay. If you can have whatever you want in paradise, what if your desire is frowned upon in this life, like music? Will you be able to have it or even want it?
That's a valid question. The only thing I can say is that there are certain things that are prohibited in this world that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does allow in the next. So for example, in this world, wine is prohibited, but there is a river of wine in paradise. So is it possible that there are things that are prohibited that a person does desire and does seek and that Allah grants? Yes, I do believe that. How that manifests and what that looks like, Allah knows best. I don't know.
What do you do when you feel your iman is low?
And music is a separate conversation.
Yeah.
Sorry, did I touch too many nerves there?
Okay, so next question.
I think some people might get upset with my playlist. Go ahead.
What do you do when you feel that your iman is low?
I advise everyone that there are two essential things that we should all be seeking so that we can get that support when we need it. Community, making sure that I'm part of one, and having some type of scholar or imam or mentor who I can turn to when I have questions or when I have spiritual problems or issues. In the community, that's where I'll get other types of support. So the moment that I feel I'm down and I'm not motivated to go to the masjid, I'm not motivated to go to a social program, I'm just kind of in my own head, I have to reach out at that point. Because it's very difficult for us to motivate ourselves. Like if I'm spiritually down, it's very difficult for me to motivate myself spiritually. Does that make sense? Like if I don't have the energy, where am I going to bring the energy to kickstart? So that energy needs to come from outside, and that requires a message or a phone call. Like, hey, listen, I need you to come over. Hey, I need you. It just requires recognition and vulnerability. But if I'm not part of community, I cannot seek that support. If I don't have a relationship with an imam or sheikh or mentor, I cannot receive that support. Like, this is something that every single one of us should have. Like these two things, including myself. Like I have mashayikh who I reach out to, like when I have questions or when I have issues. I expect every single one of us. And it doesn't have to be someone like very hi-fi or whatever. No, it doesn't matter. Like as long as you have access to someone, you know, it's like, yeah, I can reach out to Sheikh so-and-so anytime I need or anytime I have a question or anytime I need support. Great. You're doing wonderful. You're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. What community are you a part of? Well, I don't know. And no, that's not an excuse. Find community. You have to. And you can compartmentalize that. You might be like, oh, well, this is the masjid I pray at. This is the one I go to social programs. This is the one I go for like educational programming. This is the one I go to for outings. And that's completely fine. It doesn't make you any less or any better. It doesn't make you any worse because different masajid offer different things. And not every masjid can be a one-stop shop. I think that's a very unrealistic expectation. Different masajid have different purposes. Use them for those purposes that help bring you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
All right, next question. How can someone accept their current and future circumstances with qadr, especially when things can change? I struggle with how to move, think, and live sometimes now.
So I think qana and being content in the moment is something that's really important. And also developing strategies on how to get out of that, right? Just because I'm in a bad situation, does that mean that I should persist in that situation? No, absolutely not. All being content means is like, okay, this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has presented to me. I'm going to figure out how to navigate this while I'm pivoting to move to the next stage and the next level. Does that make sense? Right? Basically, I'm going to persist in this funk, right? Like I'm in a place, in a space I don't want to be, but I'm going to persist in it because this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has imposed on me in the moment. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, "La yukallifullahu nafsan illa wus'aha." Like we all believe that. It's like, okay, this is what I'm meant to bear in this moment. Okay, this is what I'm meant to bear. If I'm meant to be without a job, okay, I'm going to persist in this situation. Am I just going to sit there and wait for a job to come to me? No, right? I'm going to start applying. I'm going to start networking. I'm going to start reaching out to people. I'm going to start seeking advice, right? Like I'm going to do what I need to do. But in the meantime, I'm going to learn how to navigate the situation as is until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens up a path and opens up a way for me.
Okay, next question. For the last person to enter Jannah, how bad were their sins? Was it one of the big sins?
Wallahu alam. I have no idea. I guess he must have just been a really foul person.
All right, this is a little off topic, but I learned today that nutmeg was haram and didn't want to continue using it if it was. So I wanted to confirm if it was.
So the interesting thing that with nutmeg is that you basically have a lot of Gulf scholars who say it's haram, but if you actually ask scholars from like the Indo-Pak region where nutmeg is used, they do not agree with that. I'm just saying, like, if you live in a region where you don't use it as a spice, are you in a position where you can actually make a ruling? Versus a region where it is used generally as a spice. So I take that for what it is.
So is it like, this is just something to add on. So is it kind of like vanilla extract and these things as well that you can add like?
So vanilla extract is a little bit different in the yeah, well it is actually, that's a good point. With nutmeg, I think nutmeg in extremely high quantities is hallucinogenic, but in extremely limited quality and quantities, it is something that is that doesn't cause that change, right? It just changes the flavor, it changes the taste a little bit, just like vanilla. So the question then comes is like, okay, is there a tolerance in the Sharia for these things? Because there is a big difference between an intoxicant and a hallucinogen. Does that make sense? Right? So intoxicants, categorically prohibited. Hallucinogens, I would say that they are also prohibited, but are they as prohibited? Like there's a spectrum for prohibition, right? So there's a difference between lying to a stranger and lying to my mother. Does that make sense? Right? So lying to my mother is significantly worse than lying to a stranger. I would say with those hallucinogens, they fall into that spectrum as well of impermissibility. So is there a tolerance with certain amounts? I believe so. And I think that tolerance would be more than with intoxicants, which is why you have a number of scholars who, especially, like I said, from the subcontinent, who don't have the same issues and problems.
All right. We have a few more questions if you're
Yeah,
willing.
fine. Yeah, go ahead. Okay.
All right. Related to a sister's...
there's on this side.
Okay.
No, right? That's something that we'd be limited in. Right? It's like, you wanted a higher level? Well, then why don't you work harder, right? There's also no jealousy in Jannah, right? So people are aware, right? That these levels and stuff exist. But at that point, there are going to be certain limitations. Like, can you bring that person down from level 6 to level 7, right? To level 3? You know what I mean? I think when it comes to movement, that might be the limitation. Yes.
Okay. Related to a sister's question about balancing hope and fear, how can we discern Shaitan's messaging that can make us hopeful when we should be fearful, vice versa?
Say again?
Related to a sister's question about balancing hope and fear, how can we discern Shaitan's messaging that can make us hopeful when we should be fearful, vice versa?
So how do you differentiate that which facilitates you to do good? Right, that's the differentiation. Right, so if there's something that I'm doing and it's causing me to do more good, then this means that I'm on a path of khair. And if I'm doing something where like I'm not regularly checking in on my intention, then I have to take that opportunity to recheck in. So what does all of this require? It just really requires like the self-evaluation time and again, which is essentially what taqwa is, right? Just having that God consciousness and having that awareness. Now, how do I do that? Again, reach out to a sheikh, like if I have a support group, like, of friends, just kind of checking in and making sure that I'm being honest, be like, hey, listen, I don't know if I can actually help you with that. You might want to talk to Sheikh so-and-so.
All right. Allah created us humans and gave us the ability of choice. Why did Allah create some humans knowing that they will go to the hellfire?
That's divine wisdom. That is beyond my scope.
All right. This month we covered this life, the barzakh, day of judgment, and the akhirah. How would you summarize, and what are the best places to learn for those that are new to Islam?
Oh, the stages?
Yeah.
In English? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe like in general.
In general, so you know what? I think there's a book, I think from Bidayah والنهاية, like Ibn Kathir's, he has a section that's been translated on the Day of Judgment. I think that might be good. I'd have to do a survey of some of the English books. I'm like really not familiar. Yeah, I was in Saudi for like 10 years, like, and everything I learned and studied was in Arabic. So my English book perusal is very limited, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's a valid question. I don't have the answer. I'm sorry.
Would you say like maybe the English version or translation of Al-Bidayah والنهاية would be a good place to start?
So Bidayah والنهاية is multiple volumes. I think just the section, at least that I'm sure has been translated, is on the Day of Judgment. So I think that would be a good place to start. I don't know if there are any series online about this. Yes, go ahead. Okay. 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 So, okay. So with the issue with Bidayah والنهاية is like it's a history book, right? So he just talks about, it's like the history of humanity. But concerning these particular subjects, I would say like the end of it would cover like the signs of the end of times. Yeah, unless anybody else has any resources to recommend, I'm sorry. No? All right, so I guess that might be a good place to start.
Okay. As of late, or just in general, what's your go-to spiritual exercise to keep you on the path for Jannah?
Oh, me personally?
Yeah.
I think reading and engaging with others, that's been something that's been really fulfilling for me. So a lot of it is like this. People come with questions or people come with issues. It causes me to research and to go look into either alternatives or to help find pathways. I think a lot of what has happened, at least in Western discourse, is we've taken a very conservative approach to religion, and we've kind of closed the doors on a lot of things. So when it comes to issues like home ownership or things like purchasing cars or things like, even leveraging certain assets and things that we have, I think that we've taken a really conservative approach to those things, and it's really limited what the community can do. And I think the role of the mufti is not to play it safe, right? Like I truly believe that. I think the role of the mufti is to kind of like be on the edge, to kind of help create pathways that normally wouldn't be visible to someone who isn't as academically versed. So that's mine. Like I really like helping create pathways for success, inshallah.
Can you tell me a good way on how to
Gotcha.
deal with? Oh, there was someone.
Yes.
On the brother side.
Yeah. Go ahead, Rashid. Walaikum salam. Mm-hmm. 100 times this earth. Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah. Do will is like will boredom be expelled? Right. I would imagine there's so much variety that even if a person does get bored with something, right, they can always switch to something else. Wallahu a'lam. Yes.
Okay. Can you tell me a good way on how to deal with the guilt as a convert to Islam for the years that I could not worship Allah and I didn't?
Sure. Why do you think Allah will hold you accountable? Allah's not petty, right? When Allah tells you that Islam yajubu ma qablu, that Islam wipes away everything that's before it, who am I to hold myself accountable for something that Allah promises that He won't hold me at account? There can be forgiveness in the sense that, like remorse, that I did XYZ things, or that I engaged in XYZ activities, which is completely understandable. But at the end of the day, I think this is more of an issue of not this individual's relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but more of their relationship with others, because I think sometimes our pasts have an effect on those relationships. In terms of Allah, Allah has already said, like, hey, I've given you a clean slate. But that doesn't mean that my past is not going to have an effect on my future relationships. Does that make sense? Right. So, for example, if I was a drug dealer in the past, and I become Muslim, everybody knew I was a drug dealer, and there are people who are hesitant to take money from me, or there are people who are hesitant to go out and eat with me. Is that understandable? Yeah, right. 100%. It's understandable. It's like, yo, man, I'm really not really comfortable knowing that, like, this guy's sitting on all this blood money, right? Because it could be from killing, it could be from taking advantage of others, it could be from hurting others, it could be from selling drugs, right? Like, all of these things are possible. And does that mean that that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is still holding him accountable for that money? No. My choice, like in how I deal with him, and my choice in how I interact with him, that has nothing to do with forgiveness, right? And it shouldn't be a reflection of that. So I believe, and I could be wrong, that that's what's happening in this situation, that this person is more concerned about their past having an effect on their future relationships, and feeling that this is from Allah. That's not from Allah. My relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can be very compartmentalized when it comes to my relationships with others. Because some of those can be representative in a way that if I'm praying and I'm fasting and I'm doing all these things, like, it should enrich my relationships. There's no doubt about that. But if people take a certain stand on particular issues, or because I had a particular past, that is not a reflection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's relationship with me. And I have to learn how to compartmentalize and separate those. And I think this issue specifically is less of an issue of forgiveness and more of an issue of acceptance, and understanding that, okay, you know what, people will always deal with me in this way, and it doesn't. And if it's those people, okay, you know what, I might need to find a new circle, right? Or I might need to find a new friend group, and that's usually what's challenging and difficult. So it's hard. It's just hard. There are. I can think of one example. Is there's a young woman. She used to pose nude in like magazines and stuff. She accepted Islam. So now, if she's on social media, what do you think is happening? It's not like there's guys constantly reaching out to her, like, you know, proposing to get married and this and that, right? Like, and their behavior is wrong, right? Like, I'm not here to justify that behavior, but at the end of the day, the fact that this is how people are viewing her dealing, because, like, it's the internet, right? The internet doesn't forget, and the internet still has a lot of those images. And it's sad, right, that this is happening, but it's like, okay, is that representative of my forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because people still have access to that? No, it has nothing to do with that, right? That's people. But how do I navigate it and how do I deal with it? Okay, maybe I'll have to remove myself. Maybe I'll have to move somewhere else, right? And that's a reality. Decisions we make have consequences. Like they do. If I kill someone, like if I murder someone and I go to jail and I accept Islam, these are two separate things. Because I accepted Islam, can you be like, oh, hey, let him out of jail? Huh? No, right? There have to be consequences for that. And the worldly consequence is that I'm in jail. That's a worldly consequence. Does that mean that Allah won't or can't forgive me? No, right? These are two separate things. So I think that this person maybe needs to compartmentalize a little bit, or if they want to reach out to have a further discussion, you're more than welcome to.
All right, we have a lot of questions, alhamdulillah, but we're gonna just limit it to 2 more.
Okay.
So this one says, is it okay to work towards a gate of Jannah because that comes easier to you?
And what if you don't make it?
Oh,
I'm just saying. Like, why aim for a D? It's like such a low bar. And how do you even gauge that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just curious. How do you even gauge that? How can I guarantee that I'm that person? No. The Prophet ﷺ, he tells us very clearly, إِذَا سَأَلْتَ فَاسْأَلِ الْفِرْدَوْسِ. He says, whenever you ask for paradise, ask for firdaus, because it is the highest and most central part of paradise. Aim high. Aim for the stars. There's no reason anybody should be aiming for less than that. I want everyone here to aim to be a top-tier Muslim. There's no reason we shouldn't be. And it doesn't take much. I'm being honest. It doesn't take a lot. I think the one thing it does take is it takes a lot of honesty. And the reason I can say that is because Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, he wasn't known for like a lot of his worship. Like he wasn't known for that. You know what he was known for? His belief. That's all it takes. It doesn't take someone who has to like pray every night, all the night, is fasting 7 days of the week, and like, no, that's not what it is. Like, yaqeen is here, taqwa is here, iman is here. That's what we should be working on and focusing on. Yes? Sure. Sure. There's nothing wrong with being scared of tests. Just ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give you the strength to get through them. Like I said, man, being a worshiper is something that is, all of us is attainable. The high risk positions are like being a scholar. That's high risk. Because you can get thrown into your face, like thrown by your face into the hellfire. Like being a qadi, being a mujahid, right? These are high risk positions. You just want to be a worshiper? Cruise, man. Like, it's much lower risk. And the tests will be accordingly to that. But even in that situation, man, like a person who's worshiping and doing those things, when the test comes, what helps a person with tests? Not those kind of tests. What helps a person with tests? What helps me with spiritual tests? Iman. Right, and how much more iman would a person who prays and fasts and does everything they're supposed to do? Like, that will actually help ward off and navigate those tests. Mm-hmm.
okay, final question. What will our relationship with Allah and the prophets look like when we are in Jannah?
With Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's something that's called the beatific vision, meaning that every Friday Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will show himself to the believers, and it will be like the best part of their week, that they get to gaze upon their Lord. So in that sense, like asking or seeking or looking upon him Azza wa Jal, that is our relationship with him. In terms of the prophets, we will have access to them just like we have access to all people in paradise. I remember my daughter, she asked me, she was like, oh, well, like if everybody looks the same, how can you tell the difference? I was like, we're not going to look the same, number one. Right? We'll be the same age. But the Prophet ﷺ, he said, have you ever seen a school of birds? They all look very similar, yes? And he said, yeah, but they can still tell each other apart. Right? It's the same thing in paradise. And Allah knows best. But I guess that was the last question. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you guys. If you guys do ever have any follow-up questions, I'm on Instagram. It's DAH_Imam. Feel free to either send me a question or you can make an appointment to have a conversation. But may He Azza wa Jal bless you guys, bless this initiative, and bless all the work that you guys are doing. Jazakumullah khair. Is this where we do a donation appeal or no? Huh? Was it YPP? YAP? Donate generously to YAP on your way out.
Jazakallah khairan, Imam Farhan. He made a trip around 495 to make it here with us. We've asked him twice in this past week to join us. May Allah bless him and his family and everything. As mentioned, Quran night on November 6th. Please join the WhatsApp if it's your first time here. And next month we're starting a new series. Please help clean up if you can. And Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.